First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Selon Promise Abedu. I completed, let me just start from this place, Ag Memorial. In 2017, I read general science, and then I went on to do my bachelor's at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. I read biomedical engineering. And then from there, I did my national service at the West Africa Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens at Legon. And I'm currently a graduate student at the University of Rochester doing my master's in biomedical engineering and with a concentration in musculoskeletal tissue engineering. And so I'm the founder of the Kudon Foundation, and we seek to help students on the application. That is just the foundation, but the Kudon itself is a software company that works on software staff.
Salom, sorry for the interruption. Please, if you just joined, kindly put your mic on the mute. Okay, mute your mic so that we can hear whatever Salom is saying. We are having some interruptions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What is this thing? And so that's just for the foundation. And so we are organizing this meeting because of the numerous tests we received from students, and they are trying to apply and people to guide them on the application process. And so I spoke to Frank about it, and he agreed to coordinate all this. And so a very big thanks to Frank for providing his time for us to be able to do this. All right. And so every information that is being shared here today is based on the current trends in graduate school application, and it may or it may not change. So it depends on whether the schools are changing the way requirements or whatever they are looking for in graduate students, or if they are not changing it. So what I'm coming to present today is based on what the trend is as at now. Does it make sense? Frank, please, the next slide. Yeah.
Yes,
right.
It does.
So the scope of presentation would be both masters and PhD. And then first of all, I'll talk about the masters and then I'll move on to the PhD. So people ask, what is graduate school? What is graduate school? I would say graduate school is a higher education from undergraduate, as simple as that. You are just doing something, either a certificate course, another degree, or whatever, that is giving you another qualification apart from your undergraduate school or what you receive from your bachelor's. And then people ask me all the time, what is the difference between postgraduate and then graduate school? They are all the same. Postgraduate is like they are referring to your graduation after bachelor's. So you've graduated, so you are going for something. So after post, you are going for something after graduating from your bachelor's degree. And then the graduate school is like they are just likening it to like you graduated school and then you are now a graduate. So you are going for another degree, which is graduate school. So they are all the same. They are synonymous. There's no difference. And so people also ask, or people keep asking me, what can you do at graduate school? What are some of the things you can do at graduate school? And so graduate school encompasses the diploma certificates, the masters, and then the Doctor of Philosophy, or the DPhil or the PhD. People call it DPhil, others call it PhD. And so it depends on what particularly you want to do, that you categorize yourself in a specific environment. And so let me just talk about the master's degree. When you're applying for like a master's program, we have two different types of master's programs. We have the thesis-based master's program and non-thesis-based master's program. And so if I say thesis-based master's program, I mean the research-based. There are some master's programs that are just research. You do research with coursework. Do you understand? And there are some of them that you just do coursework. And so the ones that you do research in addition to the coursework, they are called thesis or research-based master's degree programs. And then the ones that you do just coursework are called the non-thesis-based master's degree programs, or non-research-based master's degree programs. And so who is a thesis-based master's degree program for? Who are the type of people who go for that kind of programs. The people who go in for the thesis-based master's program are the people who are looking out to apply to maybe PhD programs, or are looking to enter academia, or want to enter a research lab. And so they want some research experience that they can build on to be able to go into their PhD degrees, or even their research, or gain more understanding of research, be able to apply it in the research world. And so if you are someone who is willing to go into industry, it doesn't mean that you can't do a thesis-based or a research-based master's program. You can do it, but just that it wouldn't be much of like a need to you to do it. Most of the times, when people go into like industry, go for the non-thesis based, which is just a coursework to prepare you for the industry. So if you know from the onset that you want to go to industry, it is advisable to maybe go for the non-thesis based. But if you don't know what to do, or if you don't know where you are moving to, then it's good to go for the thesis based, because it will give you the ability to gain both the research and also the coursework. All right. And so we are talking about now the US private schools. We have different types of schools. We have private schools and we have public schools. And so Harvard is a private school. People don't know this. People think Harvard is a public school. It's a private school. And it's a non-profit private school. And then University of Rochester is a private school. MIT is a private school. Princeton is a private school. Mention them. Most of them are private schools. Michigan State University is a public school. University of Michigan at Ann Arbor is a public school. So all these ones, when you know them, it helps you differentiate between which ones will be giving you funding and which ones won't be giving you funding. And so let's talk about the funding aspect of a US private school. Most US private schools don't normally give or offer full funding for research-based masters, because they feel like you are just going to be with them for 2 years, right? And so within those 2 years, you don't feel like you'll be getting, or you'll be giving them enough of your input with respect to research that will be able to give you funding, because all the funding, they are coming from the research, or they are giving to them to do research. And so if they feel like you're not going to be there for a long time to be able to do like a good amount of research, they are not going to give you that funding. That is why most of the public schools don't give you, private schools, don't give you a full funding for a master's degree or a research-based master's degree program. But there are still exceptions. The exceptions, there you find some private schools that would give you full funding for your master's degrees, like a thesis-based or a research-based master's degree. But those ones are not a lot. There are just few of them. You would need to like do the research to find out whether this school is really going to give you a full funding before you try even applying. Because if you apply and get the admission, most of you can pay $70,000 per year. It's a lot of money. And so you need to do the research and understand what you are getting yourself into to be able to know your direction before you apply. So most of these schools give something we call named scholarships. When we talk about named scholarships, there are those scholarships you can say Robert A. Gordon Scholarship for so and so scholarship. Like it's named after someone. And if it is named after someone, it means the funding is coming from that family or that specific person. And so they name that scholarship after that person. So some of these private schools that will give you full funding for research-based masters have named scholarships. And then these named scholarships sometimes will give you full scholarship or even partial. And so you need to be looking out for that. And most of these private schools, you may have to pay for tuition, like pay your full tuition. Then we now come to the research-based master's program. That one, you might not even get funding at all. You might not even get funding at all for those type of programs. And because you are not even going to do research and you are just going to do coursework. And so most master's students in the US who are doing a non-research-based master's program don't get full funding for it. You can get a partial funding. You might not even get any funding at all. But there are still exceptions. In this process, in every time that you find that you found out that there are some things that are peculiar to a group of people, there are always exceptions. There are schools that would want you to come and do your non-research-based masters, and then they'll still give you funding. And those funding are normally research-based. They are normally named scholarships that they give to you. And so you want to be looking out for those ones to be able to understand what to do or know what to do. The basics of graduate school application is based on the intensity of research that you put in. If you don't research, if you don't put in the work, you don't expect to be getting anything out of it. If you're always relying on people, you don't want to read for yourself, you always want to get information from your friends, you might not get the full information from your friends because they might even forget what they've read. And to always try and read for yourself and understand the process for yourself. It's not always that you'll be asking a lot of questions. Everything is on Google. You can find out and then know what is what. And so when you are doing this graduate school application process, know that it's a lot of work and you have to commit yourself to it. You can't do it partially and then expect to get something out of it. Now let's move to the US public schools. For US public schools that offer master's degree programs, normally you can get full scholarships to cover your entire master's degree programs. Michigan State, University of Michigan, you can talk about some of the public schools. I can't remember any of them. Yeah, and they offer these scholarships based on teaching assistantship or graduate assistantship. Some graduate assistants are called teaching assistantship. Some of them are called just graduate assistantship. Some of them you don't have to teach. Some of them too are called research assistantship. So it depends on what the school is giving you the scholarship on. And so if you're applying to some of these US public schools, what you need to do is you have to look on their page whether they offer teaching assistantship or research assistantship so that you can apply early. Some of these schools, you would have to get in before they offer you. When they look at your application and they feel like you are a good candidate for a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship, they offer you that position and then interview you for it. And so some of the things you need to be looking out for when you're applying to a US public school for a master's degree program, which is research-based, is look out for teaching assistantship, look out for research assistantship, because these are the ones that will give you the ability to attend on a full scholarship. And most of these public schools give tuition waivers. When you apply to some of these schools, which are public schools, they normally give, because these public schools have like a lot of funds for research from the government, they are able to give you tuition waivers, and then the rest of the cost to be covered by your teaching assistantship or your research assistantship. And then non-research based masters, most public schools don't offer full funding for non-research based masters because they also assume that you're not coming to do research. And I told you earlier that the funding comes from the research. And so you need to understand this before you apply. Otherwise, you just apply to all the schools you can see online, and then you get admission, all right, but there will be no scholarship for you to be able to attend. And that looks like you've wasted all your time, because applying to putting a lot of effort in graduate school application and not getting anything out of it is really, really annoying. Yeah. And some of these public schools have something we call direct lab admit. What do I mean by direct lab admit? When we say direct lab admit, it means that there's a professor in that school that wants students, and then you don't have to go through an admission committee review to be able to get accepted into that school. All you need to do is to contact that professor, and then if he or she feels that you are a good fit for his or her lab, they will interview you, and if they feel you are good enough, they will give you the admission. When they give you admission, they will just send your name to the graduate school, and then the graduate school will send you a letter. And so we have different types of admission. We have direct lab admit, and then the admission by a committee. So that committee, if it's a committee, it means that the professor has no much of a say in it. Although they sometimes have a say, or they can recommend a student, I like this student, and so we can accept him because I want to work with him or her. But they don't have so much of a say in it. But if it is a direct lab admit, it's the professor's lab. And if that professor says yes, and then you meet the requirements of the graduate school, you'll be able to get admission to that school. And so when you're applying to any school at all, you need to find out whether the admission is based on a direct lab admit or an admission committee. If it is based on a direct lab admit, then it is very, very helpful to contact professors before submitting your application. Let me repeat. If it is a direct lab admission, it is very, very helpful to contact professors before you submit your application. Because if you don't contact them before time, people are going to do it. And then they might even have a conversation with the professor before they submit the application. And so that kind of relationship is already there. So it becomes easier for them to get it than you that you didn't contact that professor's lab you are interested in. All right, the next slide.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so now we move to Canadian schools. Most Canadian schools give full funding for thesis-based masters. And so when you are thinking of applying to Canada, one thing you need to find out is whether the school is going to give you a full funding or not. All these things can be found on the school's website. Let me see, for example, if you're applying to Harvard University has different departments, and those different departments, all of them have different websites. And so let me say you're applying to PhD in biological sciences, as Frank did. What you need to do is Harvard University PhD in biological sciences. You type that, you put on Google, you search, it will come out. The website will come, and then every information that you need to be able to apply to that school will be there. If you don't understand anything, just email. There's an email that will be on the website. Just email them. They are going to respond to you and give you the information that you need. And so the best thing is to read and read a lot. If you are doing the research very well, I think you should be doing the right thing. And most of these professors in Canada recruit based on direct lab admits. When you go to University of British Columbia, University of Toronto, McGill, and the rest, most of them, is the professors say they normally don't have a committee that reviews for them like how most of the US institutions do. So what you need to do is when you're applying to Canada, what you need to keep behind your mind or at the back of your mind is that know that you need to contact professors before time. And so if the school is having or the school has, let me see, an admission committee that reviews for them, then it doesn't necessarily count if you contact a professor, although it helps. Do you understand? If the school is having a committee that is reviewing for them, if you contact a professor, they are not going to have much of a say in the application process, but it helps. Sometimes it might be that that professor you are contacting is even the head of the admission committee, and so you kind of know or have close contact with that professor already. And so what I would advise you to do is that if you have time and you're applying to a school that is reviewing based on an admission committee, if you have time, you can contact professors. But if you don't have time, don't die over it. But if you're applying to a school that is recruiting based on a direct lab admit, you have to by all means contact a professor. Still, there are exceptions. If you don't contact a professor and your application is really strong and they read it and they feel like you're a very good fit for their lab, they will always reach out to you and say, hi, I'm very happy. I was very happy while reading your application. Can we have a conversation via Zoom? That conversation is not a conversation. It's an interview. So you need to prepare for it. Anytime those professors tell you they want to have a conversation with you, it's an interview. They won't tell you directly it's an interview. It's an informal interview. And they want to just know your qualifications, all the things you've done over the years, whether you are the good fit for their lab. All right. So now we now move to the UK. The UK universities mostly don't offer masters, full funding for master's degrees. And most of the times, the people I know in UK apply for external scholarships like Chevening, Commonwealth, Rhodes, and the rest. And these are some of the things you should be looking out for. That is why most people don't normally apply to UK universities, because they feel like the process is stressful. You apply for the admission. After getting admission, you now have to fight for a scholarship, which is very, very stressful. And so if you are someone who is interested in applying to UK universities, have this at the back of your mind. While you are preparing your application for the school, which is very easy to get in, you get in by all means because there's no funding that is given. And if I say you get in by all means, doesn't mean that you just have submitted this type of application and then you are in. You understand? You have to work hard for it. If you work hard, you get in. That's what I mean. And so if you apply, make sure that you look out for these external scholarships that I just wrote here. Chevening, Commonwealth, Rhodes, and there are a lot of them. Just type on Google UK scholarships for master's students. They will all come, and then you read about them categorically and know which ones you qualify for. Then you'll be able to start the application process. Yeah, so some of the requirements for a master's application is a CV, a statement of purpose or a personal statement, a transcript, official or unofficial. It depends on the school to define this. The recommendation letters, some schools take 3, some others take 2. And then the GRE. We have 3 types of information you see when you open up like the school's portal. Some of them will tell you GRE is required. Some of them will tell you not required. Some of them will tell you optional. Now let me explain these things. Required means that by all means, if you don't submit it, you won't be able. They won't be able to review your application because they will deem your application as incomplete. But if it is not required, it means that even if, mark me, even if you submit a GRE score, it's not going to be reviewed as part of the application process. That is what it means. Not required. It means don't submit at all. Now, optional. Optional means you can submit or decide not to submit. And they normally say that if you don't submit, it doesn't have any effect on your application. That's what they say. But I don't know if it really does. So it depends. It depends on the school to be able to define that. But I think all these schools try to define ethics. They understand what ethics, and then the practices that are involved in reviewing application. And so if they are giving an information that says that it's optional, it means that they really mean it, right? And so most of these schools here, they deal with ethics and whatever. Although there might be some drawbacks with respect to how they do things, but they always say that they are ethical. And so it's unethical to tell someone that it's optional, and then you consider people because they submitted this what's the name, GRE. Now, English proficiency test. I get a lot of questions every day about English proficiency test, and there's a professor in Nigeria or from Nigeria who teaches or who is a professor in Canada, and then he's been advocating for Nigerian students to apply to Canadian schools without an English proficiency test. Why? It's because it feels like Nigeria is an English-speaking country, and then all their education is based on English. They do it in English, and so it doesn't matter, or it doesn't make sense that you'll be requesting an English proficiency test from someone who spent all his life going to school and then being taught in English. And so that particular professor is doing really well, and then most of these schools understood his arguments and then are waiving it for some of the students in Nigeria and then Africa as a whole. And so, but most of the US schools that you're applying to, they will tell you if you are from an English-speaking country, you don't need to like submit an English proficiency test at the IELTS, the TOEFL, or whatever you may call it. I didn't submit one. I didn't also submit a GRE score. Yeah. All right, so let's move ahead. All right, now so to the PhD. Albert, why are you drawing on my screen? No, the PhD. Frank, please go back.
Yeah.
Go back. Back. Here. All right. Okay, so what's PhD? PhD is mostly Doctor of Philosophy. And if you are going for a PhD degree or a PhD, it means you are interested in research. Like PhD is a research degree. People think that people want to leave their country because people might assume it's hard, and then they just want to do anything. See, PhD will stress you and you run. If you don't, if you are not apt for the task, see, your professor will put pressure on you, produce results. At the end, supposed to where they are,
yes.
Like, how will you be able to do something? See, it's really stressful. So I want to advise you that PhD is for people who are interested in research. It doesn't mean that you have to have a dying interest for research before you enter, but it means that you know what you already know what you are subscribing to or what you are subscribing for. So that when you come,
and you are someone a quick one, and you are someone who accepts failures because it's full of failures. You plan your experiment, you go in, you think you've done the best, the next day you go and then you see no result. Yeah, so if you are someone who doesn't accommodate failures as part of life, then PhD is not for you. That one I can definitely tell you that if you cannot accommodate failures, then PhD is not for you. Maybe something else is for you. So look for that thing. Yeah, Salam, continue.
Yeah. So learn how to accommodate failures. See, sometimes you think that you are doing the best, and then you come out and then nothing shows up in your experiment. Nothing is happening. And it's like you've been spending 2 months, 3 months on that same experiment while your colleagues in the lab are moving ahead. And don't compare yourself to other people. Move at your own pace. Me, I don't compare myself to other people. I move at my own pace. So no matter what someone is doing, I learn from them, but I don't say, because this person is doing it this way, let me do it that way. I try my own, like my unique way of doing it and doing it right, and something that will work for me. And so PhD is a doctor of philosophy. It means that you are adding a particular idea to science, that particular area that you are doing it. If it's a PhD in biological science, you are doing something that is a philosophy. You are bringing something that has not been researched. You are adding a new knowledge to a particular field of interest. And so anytime you are going in for PhD, know that you are going to discover stuff. That's why you publish papers. These papers that you publish are a conglomerate of your findings with respect to whatever you are doing. You gather them together and then find a way of writing it to improve on the scientific world, to improve on our overall human experience. And so each and every time when someone goes for like a PhD, he's conferred a doctor of something, a doctor of biomedical engineering, a doctor of biological sciences, a doctor of botany. It depends on what area you are doing it. And so that particular degree comes with a type of responsibility that you've acquired over 5 years, over 4 years, over 3 years, that you put in the work, that you're able to find something new, a new knowledge that has not been researched before, or that you have been able to add to a particular knowledge that is there already, or you are able to disprove a particular knowledge that has been there for some time. All right. Okay, so you can see some of them here. For example, according to American Psychological Association, about 80 to 90% psychology PhD programs are fully funded. And so most PhD programs are fully funded. If I would say that it's a red flag if you are applying for a PhD program that tells you to pay, because most people don't pay for it. Do you understand? Most people don't pay. So if you read on the school's website that you are supposed to pay for your PhD, don't apply, because you can't pay. It's expensive. Don't apply at all, because it's going to be stress. They won't pay you. They won't do anything. And who be stressing? Every day you wake up, the experiment is failing. Nothing. Like your parents have to send you money from home before you're able to do a PhD, before you're able to add to a particular knowledge, or you're able to contribute your quota to that particular area of interest. No, then don't apply at all. So mostly when you come here in the US, they pay you monthly. You see, after undergraduate school, most of your friends go in like to industry to work, to different places to work. Do you understand? But when you go in for a PhD program, they also see it as you are working. So they pay you, they see you as a worker. So you are also working, they pay you every monthly. So the monthly stipend or the monthly salary you receive is what you live on, is what you rent from. And so some PhD students in the US here get $3,000 per month, $4,000 per month, depending on the school, and then depending on the area you are living in. When you are living at some places here in the US, the cost of living is very low. And so the school is able to know that and then give you the amount that they know you'll be able to live with. And so it just depends on where you are going, right? And also when you're applying for a PhD program, know that most tuition fees are waived for PhD programs. And if the tuition fee is not waived, don't apply, because you can't pay. It will be stressful. Even if you can pay, it's stressful. Don't apply. Just apply to the ones that you can get full funding, so that you'll be able to at least relax in terms of finances when you come here. So about 90%, 80% of the PhD programs in the US are fully funded. You are paid monthly to work in the lab. And so after your first year of taking some courses, second year you don't take courses, you just go continue your work in the lab. And as soon as you are progressing, or as you are progressing with your work, they will still be giving you those stipends. And that is what we call the full scholarship. And then in the US, you don't need a master's degree to apply for a PhD. You don't need a master's degree to apply for a PhD. If you want to apply for a PhD and you don't have enough research experience, what you need to do is maybe apply to a master's program that can fully fund you. After doing that master's program for 2 years and gaining a lot of grounds in terms of research, you can just transfer into their PhD program and then do a top-up. Better so you can apply to other schools and then complete it and transfer some of your courses that you took in your master's program to that school. You can transfer the courses. Let me say I'm taking some courses here, cell biology, whatever. whatever, some difficult stuff here. And those things I can, if I want to go to a different school for my PhD, I can just transfer them if I want to transfer, but I can still take those courses in that school if I want to. And so you can transfer courses. And so you don't need a master's degree to apply for a PhD. Those who completed last 2 years, and you know you have enough research experience, just apply straight to a PhD program. If you want to apply for a PhD in the future, you can just do a straight up PhD. It doesn't mean that they'll pick people with master's degree over you, or they'll pick people with what's the name? A 3-year master's degree over you. What it means is that if you are demonstrating that interest of research and you are demonstrating that you can do the PhD and you do your application very well, you're very competitive for the program. And so, as I said earlier, most of the schools in the US, for the US, most of them have the admissions committee to review. But there are some few schools that also have the direct lab admits. All right. And nowadays, some of the schools are not requiring GRE. And I see some people dying over GRE all the time. What I'll tell you to do is, if you're applying to a school, like before you even start the application, find out the schools you want to apply to. Know whether they are requiring a GRE for that particular year you're applying for. And then if you're able to like know the schools and know whether they require GRE or not, then you'll be able to like start preparing for it to take it. If you have a dying need to go to a particular school and they are requiring a GRE, you can take it. But let me say, for me, because I didn't want to take it, I was looking out for schools that were not requiring GRE. So I would just filter them out and then apply to those schools. You are not going to be disadvantaged for not submitting a GRE score if the school is saying that it's not required. Do you understand? If it's not required, it's not required. I don't know. I try explaining this to Ghanaians and they'd be like, or some of my friends in Ghana, they'd be like, if you have it and then it's not required and you submit the review, don't look at it. They won't look at it.
It's a very big lie, because I also didn't write GRE. I didn't want to write GRE because it's very expensive. So
yeah,
all the schools I applied to were not requiring GRE. Harvard did not require GRE.
Yeah.
And I applied and I got in. So if someone tells you that if you don't, even if they say it's not required and then you submit, it's going to be considered, you are just wasting your time and money.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you think the school does not require, you look at their website, it says we do not require GRE, you confirm from some of the professors or the current students, don't bother yourself to write. You'll be wasting your money.
Yeah. Yeah. And Frank here got into Harvard. You see, Frank was my colleague at WACB, West African Center for Cell Biology and Nutrition. We discussed the application before we start our experiment every day. We'll be like, hey, this professor has called me for an interview. We'll be encouraging like each other in the lab before we start our experiment. And he told me he applied to Harvard. And I said, yes, let's pray. We've been praying about it. You need to also pray. And then we said, if you are here, you don't believe in prayer, I believe. And so I'm telling you from my personal experience, like prayer is good. It's very good. If you don't believe in prayer, if you think, see, there are people who have been able to succeed with hard work and prayer. Don't depend on just one. Do both. If you are doing both, you have an advantage over people who are doing just one. I'm telling you. If you
maybe next week I will share that the message I sent to you, the vow I made to God.
Yeah, you have to share that. You understand? So you have to also pray. And Frank got into Harvard amidst thousands of applicants that are applying for that particular program. People from different parts of the world. And I
am the only international student for that program. The only international student. Yeah.
Yeah. And they shortlisted 23 people out of those thousands of applicants for interview. And then he mentioned to me, hey, Selom, I've been shortlisted for an. I said, oh, this one there, you have to get in. You have to get in. So we were just there discussing about the interview process, because I also had interviews to attend and all that. So we discussed, we advised, and then all of a sudden, there was one day we came back to the lab and it was like, Selom, I got in. I was like, wow, I was very happy for him. And they selected only 13, or was it 13 or 10?
No, 10.
10 people out of that.
10 of us.
That they shortlisted for the interview. Which tells you that the GRE, if it's not required, is not required. You understand? Yeah. Which tells you that the testimony about prayer too works. Because we were praying about it. We were sowing seeds in church and all that. If you don't believe in that, Wassce Media, I believe. All right, Frank, the next slide. Okay, so for Canadian universities, most of them, you need a master's to be able to apply for their PhD program. There are still exceptions. You can get some of them without having a master's degree, but most of them in Canada, you will need a master's degree before you apply for a PhD program. So that direct PhD is mostly in the US. That is rampant in the US. When you come to UK, you also mostly need masters. There are still exceptions. There are some schools that you can, if they tell you if you have first class, you can apply straight to the PhD program. But most of them will require you to have a master's degree. And what you need for a PhD application is a statement of purpose or the personal statement. It depends on how the school defines it. You understand? The transcript, the recommendation letters, the GRE, and then the English proficiency test. The things you can see here, you think that getting them is easy. SOP Nankasa, you write so many drafts, and then before it becomes perfect or it becomes something like that you can work with, do you understand? People will review and tell you different things. Do it this way, do it that way, do it this way, do it that way. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So if you are not someone who really wants this and you are putting your work in it, there is nothing good that can come out of it. You need to work very hard for it. Let me stress, you need to work very hard for it. It's not child's play that you are just putting in something. There are some people I'm mentioning now on your application and they expect me to find every information for them. I am very helpful to some extent, but because of my research, I'm mentioning undergraduate students on application. I'm a graduate head resident here at the University of Rochester. I supervise about 14 resident assistants. I have research coursework going on. I do like administrative stuff for Codon and other stuff, and I'm really stressed out. And so when I was free, when I was like doing my application, that time I had enough time to write for people or even have Zoom meetings with people. But now my time is limited, and so I'm not able to do those kind of things. And so I expect you that I'm mentoring to also put in the work. It is your own life that you are putting on the line. You are putting your hard work on the line. You don't want to do it and not get anything out of it. So far as you're subscribing to it, then make sure you are working very hard to achieve your goal. Frank, please, the next slide.
Okay,
so how to start? So I get people texting me on WhatsApp and tell them I want to apply for a PhD program or master's program. Where do we start? Okay, and I'll be like, okay, the person will be like, where do we start from? And so I just want to highlight some of the things you need to do when you're applying for a PhD or a master's program. First of all, determine your area of interest and the particular program you would want to pursue. So determine what you want to do. Okay, let me just say this. For the statement of purpose and those things, we'll go deep into how to write them next week. And so I just want to give you a brief overview of all that the application process entails so that you'll be able to like have a gist of how to go about it. Within this week, I'll try and work with Frank so that we can pair you with your mentors on the application process. These mentors will read your application. They can find time and meet you via Zoom and then edit with you and help you edit your application and all those things. And then we take it up from there. And so I'm already coaching some people on the application process. I might give you to different mentors in the coming days or something, but I'll try my best to also support. After we are done, or after a mentor is done with your application with you, we can exchange mentors for other mentors to also bring their perspectives to your application so that they'll see, oh, this is what my mentor proposed, and this was what I have done, or this is what I have now. What do you also think? And so I value different perspectives and how people are able to draw from different perspectives and make something strong for the application, right? Okay, so first of all, determine the program or your area of interest and the particular program you would want to pursue. Then when you determine this thing, first of all, you're applying to graduate school. Go to Google, like try and know what are some of the things you want to find solutions to. Why would you want to pursue a graduate degree? Or why would you want to pursue a PhD or a master's program? What is your motivation? What motivates you? Your motivation should not be that I want to leave the country. Even that, if that is at the back of your mind, find something to say. Find something that motivates you or that you would want to do. A solution, a storyline that will be able to make a strong reason why you want to go for a graduate school. You want to go to graduate school. Then after that, look out for schools on Google. Like you want to do a PhD in chemical engineering with a concentration in, is it catalysis they call it? I don't know what it is, but let me even say mine, biomedical engineering with a concentration in tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. And so when I'm able to determine this and what I want to do, I'll go online, PhD, biomedical engineering, US schools. I'll put it there. All the schools that are in that category would pop up. And when they pop up, I'll now look at every school and the requirements that they are asking for, or what they are asking for, whether I can provide. So I have a tall list now. I want to make a short list. So making this short list would be that what I can provide and what the school is asking for. If I can provide what they're asking for, then I'll say that school can be in my list. Do you understand? If I can't provide it, I'll take it out of my list. So I'm shortlisting to like 15 schools, 20 schools, 10 schools. It depends on whether your recommendation writers will be able to agree to write 20, will agree to submit 20 recommendation letters on your behalf. So after checking the requirements of the schools, now shortlist the schools, then gather your documents. So after shortlisting the school, you know that all the schools you've selected are asking for almost the same things. So you can just pick one particular school and start gathering the document for that school. When you are done gathering all documents, what you can do is now like you can edit those documents to suit the other schools. So the SOP, you don't need to write a specific SOP for all the schools. What you need to do is write one SOP and keep changing the content with respect to what you want to do. Sometimes, if you're applying for different programs, if you did, let me say, chemistry from undergrad, and you want to do chemical engineering during undergraduate, and you're applying to some chemistry PhD programs too, it means you need to change some of the things that you'll be seeing for the chemistry program. So that time you need to draft somewhat like a new, not so new, but there will be some features from the old one that will reflect in the new one, but something like that is a little bit different from what you drafted. Do you understand? And you can always change the program that you did. If you did, let me say, agriculture, and you want to go and do agriculture engineering, you can do it. And so what I say is that undergraduate education does not determine where you go in the future. It is a stepping stone to what you want to do. And so I see people saying that, Mama, because we're in a mempe, Mama, chemistry. Do you know what chemistry can do? Do you know what chemistry can do? You can finish chemistry, work in any pharmaceutical company you like. You can finish chemistry, work in any biology, like those pure. You can, after doing biology, you can go and do biomedical engineering. You can go and do a lot of things. Like you can always change programs when you're going for graduate school. And then undergraduate education doesn't necessarily mean that when you do biology, you're going to be like working with animals. Who told you? So understand is that you can always change paths, and then every program you do has its own relevance. What you need to do is to gain the skills from your undergraduate experience. And these skills that you gain from your undergraduate experience will be able to help you and put you on that path to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. Few advice for you have to apply early. If you're applying, apply very early. Don't worry too much about bad grades. Let me say you are graduating with a second class upper or a second class lower. You don't have a first class. It's not only people who have a first class that are able to get scholarships. Do you understand? I did engineering. I had a second class upper. I'm the only master's student who got a full scholarship in my department. There are people who did better than me. It depends on how I'm able to tell my story. I didn't graduate the first class. Do you understand? I graduated with the second class upper from KNUST, Biomedical Engineering Department. And I didn't use a GRE, I didn't use an IELTS, but I found my way through to a very competitive program in the world of medicine and the world of biomedical engineering, which tells you that grades, or the grades that you think are bad, or the grades that you think are not very excellent, won't get you there. All you need to do is to get the research experience. These research experiences will be able to like put you on that right path to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. Do you understand? Tell your story very well. If you don't have a first class, it doesn't mean like first class is good, second class upper is good, a lower is not bad. Do you understand? And so if you have a lower, you have to find a better way of telling your story. Do you understand? Most of the schools, like, they require you to get a first class or second class upper. Maybe 3.0. 3.0 is second class upper. 3.0 to 3.45 or something, 4.9 or something. It depends on the school. But between 3 and 4.0, that's what mostly the schools want. But if you have a 2.9, 2.8, it doesn't mean that you won't get into a school. Do you understand? Mine was above 3.0, although, but there are people who I know got into like schools that got 2.5s and the rest, and they got in very competitive programs. And it's not because like they did something very extraordinary. They know what they were doing, or they knew what they were doing, and they put in the maximum work to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. All right. And so also PhD programs are not how big, like it's not about how big the school is. If you are a PhD student or a master's student who is doing research, you really know a lot about the school because you will step your foot on campus. The school is mostly for undergraduate students to like enjoy the school and know what is what. You graduate students, you are mostly from the lab to your home, from the home to the lab. And so the department that you are applying to is very, very, very much like it's much more important than the school itself. The totality of the school. And so people will be like, I don't like this school because they don't have a good ranking. Check the departmental ranking. And even in the department, check the professor that you are going to work with. The professor you are going to work with is the one you are going to be with for 5 years, 3 years, 4 years. And if that professor is toxic or that professor is not someone that you can work with, you guys are not compatible, then your program is going to be very, very difficult for you to enjoy. And so it depends on you to be able to identify and know if this professor is a good fit for you, if this department is a good fit for you. It's not because it's Harvard, so you feel like all the departments in Harvard are really good at specific programs. No. There are some programs in Harvard, it will be better if you do it at Michigan State University because they have the strengths there. Do you understand? So it depends on the department you're applying to. And then make sure you are looking at the departmental, like what the department can offer, not what the school can offer. Do you get it? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
You said I'm talking fast too. Wow. All right.
This is okay.
Okay. So what you need to do as a person is look out for the programs you're applying to, know the departments you're applying to, get research experiences. Like the department is really, really important. Don't base on this because this school is a very big school. I want to apply to it, and you don't look out for the department. Some of the departments in certain schools don't have a strong program because they are not really strong in that kind of research or that kind of area. And so you need to look out for those departments. And then when you are selecting professors, I would say that it's very good to go in for like programs that will do rotation for you. Mostly the programs that are based on, how will I even put it? Admission committee review normally have rotations. You come to the school and then you rotate in different labs and find out the one that you want to work with. But there are some programs that are direct lab admits. When you commit to the school, you are going to like get admitted to the particular, you work with the particular professor you want to work with. And sometimes you don't know how that professor is. You just met the person online. And so, or you don't know whether you guys are compatible. So all you need to do is like find out these admission committee review and then apply to most of them. You can select some direct lab admits and then go in there. But if you go and then you guys are not compatible, your PhD is going to be very, very difficult for you. And so, yeah, don't worry too much about very bad grades. Anyone can apply. But if you failed certain courses that you've not gone back, if you've not graduated, you can't apply. Like if you've not graduated, as in if you have some fails and you've not gone back to take them, and then the grades won't be ready before you start school, you can't go to the school. And so if you failed certain courses, you have to take the receipts and then know that you'll be able to get the grades before school resumes. I applied to the University of Rochester when I was in third year at the university. Most of the US schools, you can apply to them if you have up to the third year of your results. You don't need to have your final year, because if you apply in your third year, it's assumed that the next year that you get accepted or you go to the school, that time you would have been completing your final work in the particular school that you were. And so they can get your final transcript the year you are coming to school. So you can always apply in third year. You don't need to be in fourth year. But if you're applying in third year, it means that you have a very strong research background. Do you get it? And so I applied in third year and I was very fortunate to get in. After getting in, my friends reached out to me that they want to apply for schools outside the country, but they were looking out for undergraduate degree programs. And so I started coaching them when I was in final year in KNUST, having figured my way out. I started coaching some people on their application, and then tell a friend to tell a friend kind of thing. They were to tell their friends, and then the numbers increased. I had to put in much work. We met every Friday to discuss the application process. I spoke to a friend when you're applying for undergraduate, which I'll talk about tomorrow, you need an SAT score and those kind of things sometimes. And so I found this friend who taught in an SAT firm before, and then I spoke to him, and then I wanted him to train the people like I was coaching on application, and he agreed. He didn't request for any remuneration for his for his services. And so he taught them, they took the SAT, some of them passed really well, and then we used it for the application. And they were successful. We got into certain schools without even SAT scores, which are records we've set so far. Getting to Princeton without an SAT score, getting into Vanderbilt without an SAT score on a full scholarship. And that was when I started, like, people were reaching out to me, and I started to reach out to the people who are also looking out for this opportunity that cannot pay the application fee, because it's not everyone who can pay $3,200 for people to help them on the application. If people can't pay this amount of money, who helps those people who won't be able to pay this amount of money to be able to, like, apply to schools outside the country? Would their dreams be shattered? Would they not be able to, like, continue their dreams because of financial constraints? These are some of the reasons why I started something like this, to be able to help students who are from underprivileged backgrounds, who might not be able to pay for, like, consultation on application, to be able to apply to schools outside the country. It is my dream, and it is my hope that all these students work very hard with me and then with other mentors to be able to get into their schools of interest. If we don't do it, we don't know who is going to do it. And that is how we are taking time off our busy schedule to be able to assist you in this process. And then all we expect from you is to put in the maximum work, like listen to advice, put in the maximum work. It's not a child's play, and then work very hard to be able to achieve your dream. Yeah, thank you. So these are some of the students that we were able to work with. Some of them are not part of this picture because they had left before we took these pictures. We took them in Ghana, and these are undergraduates. I also worked with some graduate students on the application and reviewed their essays and SOPs, and some of them will be even joining us next week. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Salom, for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you for the overview you've given to us. I hope our students who have joined, or prospective students who have joined, have learned a lot today, and they will join us next week for the other webinar too, so that they will know the details of the other stages, or the various stages of the application process. So now we have some questions in the chat, so we'll try and address it within the next probably 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll call it a day. So I saw someone asking about graduate entry medical program outside. Well, I don't think we have graduate entry medical program outside of Ghana, especially in the US. Salom, I don't know whether there is something like that. To the best of my knowledge,
okay,
I know that for even in the US, the medical school is not like Ghana Medical School. So in the US, the medical school is just like a graduate program. So if you want to do medicine in the US, you have to do your pre-med, which is like an undergraduate program over here. And then later write their MCAT, that is a medical something exams. And then after that, you apply to the medical school. That's where you can get in. Okay, so it's not like the Ghana where, the Ghanaian medical school where you do it as your bachelor's degree. And if you are not able to get in for the bachelor's degree, you go and do, let's say you do biochem and later apply to the medical school, which is known as a graduate entry medical program. It's not like that over here. Okay. So
yeah. Can I add something to what you said?
Okay.
So people confuse medical school in Ghana and with medical school in the US. The medical school in Ghana or in our country, when you graduate, they give you something called MBCHP. That is Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. And in KNUST, they'll give you Bachelor of Human Biology and Bachelor of Surgery or something like that. And they are all called MBCHP. And that is more like a bachelor's degree. It's a bachelor's degree, but it's a professional bachelor's degree. Do you understand? And so when you, in the US, you have to, when you see someone from US who went to a medical school in the US, when they write their name, they write maybe Albert Mensa, MD. Do you understand? And so your bachelor's degree, which is your pre-med, if you fulfilled all the pre-med requisites, and then you apply to the medical, you take the MCAT and apply to the medical school, they give you MD. And so MD is not equivalent to MB CHB. And so a doctor from the US is different from a doctor from Ghana, or is having a different degree from a doctor from Ghana, although they are all medical doctors. And even in the US, they see this MD degrees as not like, they don't see it as a graduate degree, they see it as a bachelor's degree, although it's just a professional bachelor's degree. You understand? And so even medical doctors in the US going for master's programs and going for PhD programs.
Yeah.
Do you get it? And so when people say that it's very easy to get it to finish medical school in Ghana as compared to the US, I don't think you should be thinking about how easy it is to finish. What I want you to do is you should think about what type of medical doctor you can become. What can you offer? Does it make sense? And so if you are thinking about the easiness of completing to be called a doctor, then that is not that, then you are not doing it for the right reason. What you need to do is to know that you want to become a type of medical doctor. If you think that the US system will favor you as the medical doctor that you want to become, then you go in for that. You come in for pre-med, and then people say that you don't get scholarships to attend your MD program. It's a lie. You can always get full scholarship to attend here in the US. And so it's not about how easy it is to be a doctor somewhere. It is about how you want as a person. And so there are differences. MD in Ghana, MD in the US is not the same as MB or CHB in Ghana. And so MB, CHB is equivalent to someone who did biochemistry bachelor's. They are all bachelor's degrees. Yes, that yours is what? A professional bachelor's degree. Do you understand?
Good. So that is that for that question. I think most of the questions have been answered already.
Yeah,
someone was asking whether you can apply from, when you are in your third year. That has been answered already. Whilst you are working on your undergraduate, can you still apply? Yes, you can apply. I applied with an incomplete transcript and I got in, so you can still apply. But you have to make sure, like Selim said, you have to make sure that by the time you gain admission, you might have or would have graduated. So you would have have your complete transcript and then your certificate ready, so that when the school asks for these documents, you can easily provide to them. So take note of that. So you can still apply whilst you are in your final year with your incomplete transcript. Yes. Someone was asking about the research experience. And okay. I think Selim touched on that. One of the ways of getting research experience is through internships. Okay. Yeah. So I started my internships at the end of level 100. So when I was going to level 200, that is when I started my internship. And I was able to do 3 internships, and then my undergraduate research work added to that made my research experiences 4. So you can do internships. Please, the internship that you are doing should not, if you're interested in graduate school, PhD or master's, then don't do your internships at the hospital, because at the hospital is not research. So focus on doing research internships. So if you're at KUST, you can get a research lab over there, apply to that lab.
KCCR.
Okay. And if you're at Legon, it's very easy. You can apply to WACBEP. You can apply to the Kolebu campus. Now we have the genetics center at UG. You can apply to that place as well.
Noguchi.
Noguchi is also there. So there are a number of options. If you're interested in the PhD program or master's program, please focus on research internships. If you're interested in going back to the medical school where you can do your internship at the hospital or medical centers. If you're interested in industry, you can do your internship at Nestle, Ghana, and all those industrial related companies. But if you're interested in research, PhD programs, master's program, then focus on doing research internships. Okay. And when you are doing those internships, don't just do them for doing them sake. Don't just go in and then be putting together some things without understanding what you are doing. Because when you are writing your SOP, which we'll talk about next week, the admission committee members or people who are going to review your SOP would want to know whether you truly understand what you did. So you have to communicate it in such a way that it will show that, yes, you understood what you did and you have a power over it. Okay, you own that kind of research internship or research project you did. So we'll talk about all these next week, God willing. I don't know if I've been able to touch on all the questions. Salam, are there any other questions in there?
Okay, let me just answer. I said mechanical engineering. Where can you do your research? Okay, mechanical engineering has different areas of concentration. We know we have biomechanics and then some other parts. And so some of the places that you can do your internship, if you wouldn't be able to find research labs to do your internship as like a mechanical engineering major, what you do is you can go to some companies that have research groups. You see, there are some companies that have research groups that you can work in, even if the company doesn't have research groups, because you are tied to like not having a research program or a research lab in your country to do that kind of research. You can always join companies and then communicate that in your SOP. Even though it is difficult to find I said PhD programs. Even though it's difficult to find research labs in my country, I was able to gain blah 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 experience from blah 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 company, and I did this, I did that, I learned that. There's always a way to write your story, and professors understand perfectly that you are from Africa, you are from somewhere that it is not easy to get a research experience, and so the little effort that you put in per your research is really, really appreciated. Right? And so all you need to do is to find ways and means to be able to get some experience if there are no research experiences in your country.
Thank you very much, Selim. And to add up to this, again, one of the things that I did that I think made my application very competitive was that I knew that I was going to apply to Harvard, not because of the name of the school. I want to emphasize on this.
Yeah.
I didn't apply to Harvard because Harvard is the best school, or I mean, doubtably is the best school. No, I applied to Harvard because I knew the program that I was applying had a specific research area that I was very interested in. And that research area was also highly ranked in the US.
Yeah.
So far as Harvard is concerned, I mean, if you talk about the program, it's highly ranked. And that is why I applied to that program. So if you're applying to the program, don't consider, or if you're applying to this school, don't consider the name of the school, please. Because PhD, like we said, is a very long journey and you are going to do research. So if you are not interested in the research you are going to do over there, don't apply, because you will not be happy at all.
Yeah.
So when I knew that I had to apply to that program, what I saw was that this program is very competitive. A lot of people are going to apply. US students are going to apply. These people have a lot of research experiences than I do. So what I did was to also apply to research conferences. So I applied to a number of conferences, and thankfully I was able to do presentations at 4 international conferences. And that really made my CV very competitive and my SOP very competitive. So if you are planning to apply into a very competitive program, you can also, use this strategy. Search for conferences in your area of interest, and then try and then submit abstract to see whether you'll be shortlisted for a poster presentation or a talk, right? And that can also help you in your application. Someone has said that, or has asked that, can you apply and get a scholarship to continue your PhD if you are already enrolled in one in Ghana? It depends on the program you are in, or the university you are in. So for WACBIP, they have some collaborations that enable their PhD students, some of their PhD students, to go to other universities to do research there for a certain period of time. Okay, so that is possible. But for you to transfer directly from Ghana to go and continue your PhD somewhere and then end there, like I said, it depends on an agreement between the two institutions. If you want to leave Ghana, if you want to stop your PhD program in Ghana, then apply as a new applicant, as someone who has not even had PhD before. Okay, so you apply, you come in, and then you start all over again as a PhD candidate or a PhD student. So that is what I know. I don't know whether Salom has something to say about that as well.
I think that is it. It depends on the program that you are in. I think there are some questions coming directly to me. I want to address that.
Okay.
I want to ask how easy it is for a computer science and engineering student to get a scholarship into a graduate program. It's nothing good comes easy. So I won't say it's easy. It's competitive. What you need to do as a computer scientist or a computer engineer, you don't spend your time in an enclosed space called lab. Your lab is sometimes your home, and you can build apps, build projects. So those engineering, let me say this: most of the engineering programs, you don't need to be in a wet. Is it a wet lab they call it, or a white lab?
A wet lab experience.
A wet lab experience. Yeah, you don't need to wear a white coat all the time and be doing molecular biology. No, that's not it. Sometimes you need to work on projects. You build, let me say, my final year project was on like an integrated system to measure vital signs. I didn't go to the lab to do anything. I had to do everything manually. But it's a project experience. So when we say research experience, it's not wearing a white coat, being in the lab and testing whether Mosses do this or that. No, research experience can also be classified as a project experience can also be classified as research experience, depending on what you did and then how the results you achieved. And let me just say this briefly: when you are writing your SOP, write what you did, the techniques you used, the lessons you gained, and then how that lesson has shaped your interest in a particular field of interest. You get it? So these things are very important. So computer science and engineering, all you need to do to make yourself very competitive is work on projects from first year. If you don't have project experiences, like the little projects, like the minor projects that you did from undergraduates, include them on your CV. Why? You did it. So include them. You don't need to have big research experience with these companies to be able to write it on your CV. The small things. Your professor says build this thing in C++. You did it. You put it on your CV. They are all part of it. And so when I see most students' CV, I'll be like, and who patches and what you're here now? Like that's what I ask. But you did a lot of things, but you are just finding it difficult to put it in. The small things. Write them very competitively. Do you understand? Don't override, don't tell lies, but write the things you are writing and write them very well as a way you did them. There are certain verbs that when you use, it makes your application stand out or your CV stand out. We'll talk about all those things next week.
Yeah, so that is it. Someone was asking about the conferences. So the conferences, it depends on your research interest. So I was interested in malaria. And so what I did was to just go to Google and then search upcoming research in malaria. So that was it. You can also use Twitter. So you can have an academic account on Twitter, follow the professors that you are interested in, and then check for updates on upcoming research conferences and register. If you register, some of them, they will ask you to submit abstract. So if you have a project that you've done and you have an abstract already drafted, you just put it in. If you get accepted, hooray. If you don't get accepted, you'll be given the chance to attend the conference, not to just but not present. That is also helpful because it shows how interested you are in your area of research or area of interest. Okay, so search for specific conferences in your area of interest and then apply. For some of them, you might be asked to pay, but there is always a way out to request for waivers. Next, we will talk about that. We'll talk about how to get application fee waivers and then waivers for conferences as well. Okay, and someone also asked about public health, how to get a master's program in public health. Yes, if you don't have, okay, for masters, it's very easy to get a master's program in public health, especially in Harvard, but it's difficult to have a fully funded master's program in Harvard.
It's very difficult.
That one is very difficult. I know a lot of Ghanaians over here who are medical doctors. So they've done their medicine or medical degree in Ghana. They are here to do some 1 year or 2 years master's program over here. And whenever I talk to them and I ask them about funding, they would always tell me that it's partial. Some of them are paying the full tuition. They are paying the full tuition. So it's very difficult to get a fully funded master's program in public health in the US. Not even in public health alone. Other programs too is very difficult.
Okay, and Frank, there are some people saying that they don't know how to receive, and I'm sure it's not everyone that is joining that we have their names. I'm sure people are joining from elsewhere. I don't know how we can get their details and then add them to the page or send them something like that.
Okay, do you have the link to our website?
The Discord? Okay, the Discord?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it. Let me send it to you.
Yes, send it. You can send it into the chat so that they can just fill it and they will get their details.
You mean the Google form?
Yes, so let them fill the Google form then so that we can get it. Or is it closed now?
Yeah, I closed the Google form unless we create a new one. I can
okay,
I
what
give
about
them my email? What about my email?
Okay, that's fine.
So
you can give them the.
But please, when you send me an email, I might not be able to reply to you as early as possible. I'm sure if I send my email, I'm going to get a lot of emails.
But next week, so what we'll do is that next week we'll create a Google form so that all these new applicants will fill. Yeah. So
but for now, let me give you my email. Just email me and I'll compile all the names and I would send the link to them.
Okay. Yes, and Theophilus, he said you have a bachelor's degree in mathematics education. Yes, so you can apply. So once you have a bachelor's degree, whether you attended college or university, you can still apply with. Once it is another graduate degree, you can apply with that. We can work towards how to get funding for this. So we'll talk about all these next week. So don't worry about teaching assistantship or research assistantship. We can work on all these going forward. You are my personal mentee, so don't worry about that. Let's stay in touch and then we'll know how to go through the application process successfully.
Douglas, we will talk about undergraduate process tomorrow. I'll send the link to you, so don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, those who would like to apply to undergraduate degree. Okay. All right. So I think now time is fast spent. I have to run to campus and then go and do some lab work. So we'd like to thank everyone who was able to join today's webinar. We are very grateful. We believe that you've learned a lot and you are going to